Grade 12 Economics. Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Mhlongo. Welcome to today's lesson. Our today's lesson is focusing on revision as we prepare for paper 2 tomorrow. Remember, this lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Cyber Discovery. Business of the day. Today we are revising, preparing for tomorrow, as we know that we are writing paper 2 of economics. The topic that we'll be dealing with today is microeconomics, with 3 subtopics, namely perfect market, imperfect market, and market failures. So please join me so that we see what I have for you in the program. So exam date is tomorrow, 20th in the morning. Economics paper 2. And we wish you all the best. It's a morning session. Topics to be considered: perfect markets, imperfect markets, and the market failures. These are the details on the question paper. Our question paper for tomorrow is out of 150. As you wrote your paper 1 as also 150, duration 2 hours. It consists of 6 questions divided into 3 sections. We have section A with question 1, which is compulsory, out of 30 marks. We have section B, which consists of 3 questions, but you answer only 2. Then question 2 up to question 4, of which as a candidate you must answer or choose only 2 questions. Don't answer everything. Section C consists of 2 questions, question 5 and 6. You answer only 1 question. So please try to ensure that you choose accordingly. Use your time allocated to you for reading efficiently to plan on how we are going to answer and to choose questions. Avoid leaving spaces in your examination. If you choose the question, answer everything that is on that particular question. Do not just skip. It's notable that you are skipping and leaving spaces in 1.3. In the paper that we were writing yesterday, we are writing yesterday, paper 1, you did the same, you left spaces. So please ensure that you become efficient. Use 2 hours accordingly, because should you not be able to complete your question paper, that will mean you won't be getting the marks that you require. Into you can be the graph, can be the cartoon, can be the extract. Then you read questions and answer. Then we'll move to 8 marks questions. Middle order discussion questions, where you will have to read the question, understand, then answer questions for 8 marks. And then we'll go to higher order. After that, we'll go straight to essays, which is section C, where then we'll have to learn more about. If we produce more, the variable cost will be increasing. As we produce less, variable cost will be decreasing. Example of that can be water, electricity, cost of transport, etc. Then we have fixed cost. Fixed costs refer to the costs that do not change with the output. Even if we produce more as the firm, fixed costs remain the same. If we produce nothing, it remains the same. In this situation, we talk about the likes of wages and salaries, lease agreement or rent, insurance premiums are the part of fixed cost. Again, you can come across the same content where you distinguish or differentiate between variable costs and fixed costs, or you briefly discuss variable costs and go further with some examples. Name any 2 examples of explicit cost. So if we talk about explicit cost, the first thing you must know, be able to list examples in there, which is the cost of production. We talk about the likes of the cost of raw material, cost of factors of production, etc. And then also even wages and salaries are the part of explicit cost. Then be able to define the explicit cost, to say those are costs that are calculated by accountants of the business. So including those examples. Remember, as you know explicit cost, automatically you know the implicit cost, because implicit costs refer to costs that are calculated by economists of the business, like returns to shareholders. Returns or benefits enjoyed by shareholders of the business are the part of the implicit cost. Then let's check. We have the rent, we have wages and salaries, we have cost of raw materials, we have cost of advertising. Then mention any 2 benefits of minimum wage. Now we are moving to market failure. Minimum wage, remember, If we talk about minimum wage, we refer to lowest wage that no worker should be paid below. So what is good about minimum wage, and who is responsible for legislating minimum wage? The government is fully responsible for legislating minimum wage in South Africa. What is good about it? Minimum wage can result to redistribution of income. Minimum wage can improve living standard. Minimum wage can result to more demand for goods and services, and also it can also increase tax revenues received by the government. As people earn income, they buy goods, then through VAT there will be increase in the state revenue because of the minimum wage. Remember what is bad about the minimum wage. Minimum wage can result to unemployment, because as minimum wage is implemented or legislated, it increases the cost of production. Labor costs tend to increase for businesses. Then if they can't afford to cover those costs, they tend to retrench some workers so that they will be able to pay that particular wage level. So it's important that we have that in your mind. And then remember industries that are affected by minimum wage in South Africa. Talk about domestic workers industry, agricultural industry, and then we talk about EPWP programs, and then internship programs also are the part of the minimum wage beneficiaries. So reduction of income inequalities, improvement of living standard, increase in the supply for labor. We continue. Give any two examples of fixed cost. We have explained that one. So insurance, then rent lease, contract, property taxes, depreciation, salaries. Mention any two types of inefficiency that can happen in the market. In there we talk about productive inefficiency. Remember on the PPC, this is the inefficiency that occurs when the firm produces at the higher cost while there is a room for the firm to produce at the lower cost. It happens when the firm cannot meet the consumer utility with its goods and services. Maybe the firm is supplying less than what is demanded. That is caused by allocative inefficiency, resulting to the productive inefficiency. When not all consumers will go with the product while they demand more. Then we talk about also the allocative inefficiency, which occurs when available resources are not used to their optimal level. They are not used to their optimum level. That's an allocative inefficiency. And then we also have Pareto inefficiency, which occurs when it's impossible to make someone better without making someone worse off. Name any two groups of workers that benefit from minimum wage. In mentioned farm workers, domestic workers, expanded public work program workers, leadership agreements workers. Then we move to middle order. There's a lot that can be asked from you. They can ask you to mention characteristics. They can ask you to mention examples of firms under, of industries under perfect market or monopoly or monopolistic. So there's a lot, so just be prepared. Middle order questions, this is where you have to answer in full sentences. You don't just list. Ensure that you answer in the full sentence to obtain that 2 marks. Why are merit goods normally undersupplied by the market? Remember, if we talk about the merit goods, we are on the market failure now. Merit goods refers to goods that are beneficial to the entire society. These are the goods that include education, healthcare, and the defense force. These goods are undersupplied by the market because they're actually underrated by the market. Then they're undersupplied because people are not willing to pay for them. And the market is not willing to supply goods and services that people or consumers are not willing to pay for. For that reason, let's check. Market only produces goods that are profitable. Some goods are highly desirable for the general welfare of people, but not highly rated by the market. Private costs exceed private benefit. If they had to be paid for, relatively little would be consumed. Then we continue. Why do businesses in the perfect market structure only make economic profit in the short term or short run? Remember that in the perfect market, perfect market, remember, is a market structure that exists where there are many buyers and sellers with none of them having influence over the price. So why they basically make economic profit in the short run? It is believed that they make economic profit in the short run because under perfect market, the market entry is free. There is a high level of competition. If these businesses are making the profit in the short run, they attract the entry of new businesses to enter the market and compete. As these firms are attracted to enter the market, they enter the market, which increases the competition. As the competition increases in the market share is reduced from existing firms, which result to them then profit. So perfect market entry is free in the long run. New firms or business would enter the market, which then raises competition. And The rise in the market competition shrinks or reduces long-run profits from economic profits to the normal profits. Why would the business shut down its operations? Remember, when the business is shutting down, there are two ways for the business to shut down. It's either the business can no longer continue to operate in this way. The business is producing one or two products. If the business produces one product, the business will then shut down if it cannot afford to cover its variable cost. So it will leave the market if it's producing one product. But if the business is producing more than one product, but one product is still fine, the business is able to make the profit, but for the other product, the business is unable to cover its variable cost, then the business can shut down. Why I'm emphasizing on the variable cost? It is because the firm does have a control or influence over variable cost. So it can manage its variable cost. So should the firm be unable to cover its variable cost, that firm cannot afford to stand in the market, cannot afford to operate. But we put aside fixed costs because the firm cannot have much influence over fixed costs since they are signed in, for the long term or in a way of lease agreement. Like we talk about the rent, the firm cannot manage the rent. If ever the firm can manage something, it can mainly manage, what is it? Can mainly manage variable cost. So the firm shut down its operations if its average variable cost are equals to marginal cost are equals to average cost are equals to marginal revenue are equal to the price. Then the firm can stop its operations or shut down. Also, when the firm cannot afford to cover its variable cost, the business would shut down its operations if it's unable to cover its variable cost, or when average variable costs are equals to the marginal cost, average revenue, marginal revenue, and the price. That's how the firm can shut down. And then why is it difficult for firms to enter oligopoly market? Remember, under oligopoly, there is no free entry. Barriers to entry exist to block the entry of new businesses. We talk about the high capital requirement as one of the barriers to entry that can block firms from entering the market, because remember, we say oligopoly refer to the market structure that exists where there are few large firms and many buyers. As much as we have smaller firms that are there, but they don't have much market share. So there are few large firms. If we talk about large firms, we need firms that are well developed, firms that then had to require more capital for them to enter the market. So there's mostly high capital requirement for the firm to enter the market and compete. So oligopoly market is protected by barriers to entry, which include high capital requirement, which infant industries therefore find it difficult to enter the market and compete because infant industries are faced by lower level of capital. How is branding used to increase market share by firms? Remember, if we talk about the branding, somewhere one can say it's a trademark. That's when the business will put a particular label or to his or her own product to make the product appear different from those of the competitors. So let's check. So businesses sell products that are highly differentiated from those of the competitors to make them stand out. So that even increase what we call the customer or consumer loyalty, because people go with the brand. So some people are very much orientated when they come to the brand. They choose their own brands carefully. Then they can even go a long way. They can fight for their brands that they have chosen as consumers. So branding is conducted based on opinion of the consumer or of consumers to make their opinion matter. Building customer loyalty or consumer loyalty where consumers choose the firm's product over those of other competitors. Then we continue with the make order. Okay, now we are done with the make order, but there's a lot that can be provided to you. We move to the data response now. So, like to add more, maybe there can be a question asking you, how does the entry of new businesses affect profit enjoyed by existing firms in the long run? Whenever businesses enter the market, they increase competition, which reduces market share for existing firms, which reduce profits from economic profit to the normal profit. One can even ask you, maybe, why are South African monopolies find it difficult to make economic profit? So that can be from 2 marks to 10 marks. They find it difficult to make economic profit because SOEs are very much inefficient. They misuse public resources. And then number 2, public officials or those people employed there are very much inefficient in a way that they are corrupt. They use public funds to benefit themselves. They lack knowledge and skills, meaning there is a management failure in there. So there's a lot we can provide in that manner. Then one can ask you that how do administered prices such as price ceiling affect the economy? If we talk about price ceilings, we refer to prices that are administered by the government to be below equilibrium. How do they affect the economy? They result to businesses stop producing or producing less of certain goods and services because those goods become less profitable. So that can cause the government to convert those goods to public goods and services. Let's check data response. Start the table below and answer questions that follow. Remember, it is important that when you are giving data response, you understand the data through interpretation before you attempt to answer the question. Not all answers from data will be required. Maybe it can be 2 answers or 1 answer, lower order. The rest, you must relate and answer questions. So it is important. I think that was also emphasized in our paper 1. So we are given cost and revenue schedule here, where we have our price. So our price remain constant at 10, and then quantity keep on increasing. And then we have our total revenues, we have total cost, then we have profit or a loss. Then we are given B there, meaning that there must be a certain calculation. So you need to check, especially on quantity 15, the firm is making a normal profit because average, total revenues are equal to the total cost, then the firm is making a normal profit in there. But if you can check at quantity 5, the firm makes economic profit because revenues are more than cost, TR is more than TC. And then also quantity 10, TR is more than TC. Quantity 20, it's a loss because TC is more than TR. So let's check. Remember, this table is from costs and revenues under perfect market. Which market structure can these costs and revenues be associated to? Then we talk about the perfect market or perfect competition. At what level of the output will the firm be making a normal profit? It was indicated at 15. Briefly describe the term total revenues. Total revenue refers to total income received from the sale of goods and services when price is multiplied by the quantity. That's a total revenue. And then we continue. Why does the above market profit disappear in the long run? So why does the profit for the perfect market disappear in the long run? Remember, it mainly disappears because in the long run, all inputs are flexible, all factors of production are flexible. So for that reason, firms can enter the market easily to increase the competition, which can result to the existing firms finding it difficult for them to produce more because of high competition. Their profits will then be reduced to the normal profit in the long run due to the fact that competition increases in the long run because of the market entry. The entry of new businesses increase the perfect market competition, which decrease sales for individual firms. Short-run profits attract new rivalries. Then calculate the profit or loss at B. Show, from the table above, show all calculations. So in that situation, we simply say we are giving total revenue. So there is no need for you to go further to ACAR because we are giving TR and TC. So we say total revenues minus total cost. Then we say 200 minus 300 equals to negative 100. That's economic loss that has incurred in that particular business. Data response, we continue. Here we are giving the entry of new businesses in the market. You can see that if as new businesses enter the market, under the industry, the supply of goods and services will be increasing from S to S1, and then that will be shifting prices down because supply increase more than the demand. Then the price is dropping down to 7, but quantity supplied increased to 140 from 100. And then what happens on the other side? Individual firms. So the firm was mainly on the first line where we took the price as price takers, which is 10 rand. Then we created original equilibrium there, where MC equals to MR. There you go. And then when the market entry increased, what happened to the individual firm? These firms that were existing now found themselves facing high level of competition in a way that equilibrium shifted down from E to E1, resulting in the quantity produced decreasing from 600 to 500. Then the new equilibrium is E1 in there. That means then the profit made by this firm is no longer economic profit, but now it's a normal profit because firms have entered the market, and then market share for these existing firms have been reduced, which has resulted to the decrease in profits to the normal profits. Where does the marginal cost curve MC intersect the average cost curve AC? The MC curve intersects AC curve at the minimum point, which is E1, at the price of 7 rand and the quantity of 500 rand. Identify the price where the individual producer will be making normal profit. That is 10, where the firm will be making normal profit because average revenues are equal to the average cost in there. Briefly describe the term marginal cost. Here we talk about additional costs incurred when one more unit has been produced, or extra cost that incurred when an extra unit has been produced in the business or the market. Why is the marginal revenue curve MR in the perfect market same as the demand curve? So remember, under perfect market, MR and AR are equal. They are the same curve. Why are they the same curve? Each additional unit would be sold at the same price, which is horizontal demand curve. Remember, firms under perfect market are the price takers, they have no control or influence over the price. So producing any extra unit, the firm will keep on selling at the similar price. So that's what make what you call average revenues and marginal revenues to be the same curve under perfect market. Unlike in the monopoly, remember under the monopoly, AR and MR are not the same curve. AR is above, but MR lies below AR and cuts horizontal axis in the middle, because any actual unit is not sold at the same price. So under perfect market, firms are price takers. They don't have influence over the price. However, they only determine or decide on the output size to be produced at the given price. So that's why we say they are the price takers. And then explain how long-run equilibrium is achieved in the market. Economic profit attract new entrants into the market, which will increase the market share, the market supply, thus lowering its price. Whenever new firms enter the market in the long run, that results in high competition that will be increasing the market supply and drop the price down, because the supply would have increased more than the demand, so the prices will be decreasing because of that. So the individual firm is a price taker, and the lower price will wipe out their profit. So as firms are taking the lower price, their profits will then be reduced from economic profit to the normal profit. So until the price of average revenue will be equal to the average cost, which will then result in the the normal profit. The long run equilibrium position is where normal profit prevails. So in the long run, we say under perfect market, there is a normal profit where average revenues are equal to the average cost, or total revenues are equal to the total cost. So in the long run, remember we said there is increase in number of business that can enter the market due to the fact that existing firm that have been making the profit has attracted the entry of new businesses, which will then attract new business to enter the market. In that way, competition will be increasing. Another point would be, in the long run, all inputs are flexible, all factors of production are flexible. So for that reason, firms can have enough capital to enter the market and compete, which will then be increasing competition for existing firms and result to their profits being reduced to the normal profits. Then we move to the oligopoly. Start the graph below and answer questions that follow. So here we talk about the oligopolist with the Kinked demand curve. So this is the demand curve, the top segment and the bottom segment. So E is known as a market price or collusive price. So then in this situation, remember, under oligopoly, there's a market interdependence. Firms are very much linked to one another in terms of decision making. Firms copy each other's strategies, or they watch each other very close, so that if one firm is making a profitable decision, then they can be able to copy that decision so that they avoid losing their consumers to the competitor. So the demand curve is simply having two segments because of market interdependence. If you can check the top segment, we say is relatively elastic, because should one firm under oligopoly decide to increase its price from 40 to 45, what is the implication of that? That will result to what? It will result in consumers leaving this firm, not buying from this firm because it's selling these goods at the higher cost, while other same competitors are selling at the lower cost. Here we relate to the pure oligopolies. If ever firms under pure oligopoly were selling at 40 rand, but one firm decide to increase the price to 45 rand, consumers are not going to follow that firm. They will leave that firm and buy from other competitors that are still selling the same product at the lower price. For that reason, they become very sensitive to the increase in price if other firms are still selling at the lower price. That creates this segment, which is the top segment. What about the bottom segment? The bottom segment is created by this fact. So under oligopoly, firms watch each other very close. So if one firm is making a profitable decision, they always try to copy the strategy, avoiding losing their market share as well as their revenues. So should this firm decide to lower the price from 40 rand to 28 rand, remember the main aim is to ensure that it maximizes its profits and total revenues. However, it will lower the price. Then competitors will see that the competitor has lowered the price, and they will do the same by lowering their prices too, to avoid losing their market share. What will be the effect of that? Any expected profit by this firm will be lost immediately because all other competitors have decided to lower their prices. So consumers will find no reason or no incentive to shift from their own supplier to another supplier, because the price remain the same. They have all lowered the price from 40 rand to 28 rand. So that creates a bottom segment. Then consumers become not very sensitive to the decrease in price under oligopoly, because all other firms will copy the same strategy by lowering their prices from 40 to 28 rand. So if they become not very sensitive, then the bottom segment become relatively inelastic. All right, then let's check the questions. So whenever we're selling at collusive price, which is 40 rand, the quantity supplied is 700. But when the firm increased the price from 40 Rand to 45 Rand, the quantity demanded goes down to 400. When the firm decides to lower the price from 40 to 28 Rand, the quantity supplied simply increased by 100, it goes to 800, because consumers become very sensitive to the decrease in, not very sensitive to the decrease in price, because all other firms have copied the same strategy, which is a part of implicit collusion. So remember, oligopoly firms always avoid competing over the price. They rather choose collusive price over competing over the price, because they avoid price war. So price war occurs when firms within the same oligopoly firm, same oligopoly industry, one firm increase the price, other firms do the same. One firm lower the price, other firms do the same. That's a price war, when they fight over the price. So let's check then the questions. Identify the inelastic segment of the demand curve. It's ED1, the below the king or second or bottom segment. Name the demand curve depicted above. It's a kinked demand curve. If one can ask you to define the kinked demand curve, that means it's a oligopoly demand curve that is characterized by two segments, namely top segment and bottom segment. Remember, top segment is relatively elastic, while bottom segment is relatively inelastic. Then we continue. Briefly describe the term tacit collusion. Remember, if we talk about tacit collusion, we also refer to the implicit collusion or hidden collusion. So it's also hidden. It's not formal, has not been discussed. So tacit collusion, the behavior of firms is motivated by an arrangement that is not formal, unspoken actions between oligopoly firms that are likely to minimize a competitive response. When dominant firms increase the price and hope that its rivals will see it as a as a market signal and increase their prices. So implicit collusion refers to the collusion that occurs when firms copy each other's strategies without any formal agreement, without any formal discussion. So we call that one implicit or tacit collusion or hidden collusion. Remember, we have the opposite of that, which is regarded as an explicit collusion, which refers to the formal agreement between firms within the same industry where they meet to discuss price fixing and production techniques. We call that one an explicit collusion. Remember, if we talk about these two types of collusion, implicit collusion happen easily under price leadership. So what is meant by price leadership? Price leadership occurs when one firm within the oligopoly determines the price on behalf of all other firms within the market. So in that situation, one firm will set the price, other firms will copy the price without any formal agreement. We call that the price leadership process. Then we have something that we call a price leader. What's a price leader? A price leader is the firm that determines the price on behalf of all competitors within the market. We call that one a price leader. Then we have a dominant firm. A dominant firm refers to the firm that has at least more market share within the industry. At least it is having about 32% or more market share within the industry, meaning the rest of other firms are sharing the remaining part, but it has more market share or more consumers or more sales in the industry. We call that one a dominant firm. So how do businesses under oligopoly nominate the price leader? So the price leader can be either the firm is a dominant firm, meaning it has more sales or more market share than any other firm. It's big enough or large enough in the market, like it produces at the economies of scale. That firm can also be regarded as what we call a price leader. But then it can also be a firm that is smart enough or good enough to understand market signals. So whenever the firm always make a profitable decision, other firms will always copy those decisions, avoiding losing their market share. So that firm can mainly be nominated as what we call as a price leader in the industry. Then if we talk about the explicit collusion, that's when there's a formal agreement. So the explicit or overt collusion or formal collusion mainly occur under cartels. What is meant by the cartel? The cartel is the association between firms within the same industry where they meet to discuss price fixing and production techniques. So under cartels, we can simply prove that firm did collude indeed. So when firms within the same industry meet and formulate cartels, then that's where explicit collusion can occur. So that's why we say it can be proven that it did happen, the explicit collusion, but implicit cannot be proven because there's no formal agreement between firms, but firms copy each other's strategies and decisions without any formal agreement. And then we continue. How does the profit of an oligopoly differ from the profit of monopolistic in the long run? So check. Remember, if we talk about the monopolistic competition, we refer to the market structure that exists where there are many buyers and sellers, characterized by the hybrid structure. We call that one monopolistic competition. Then how does the profit differ in the long run? the firm under monopolistic competition enjoys normal profit in the long run. Why? It becomes the normal profit in the long run due to the fact that under monopolistic competition, the market entry is free. New firms are free to enter the market and they can leave anytime as they wish. For that reason, there are no barriers to entry which increase the competition. So as new firms enter the market in the long run under monopolistic competition, that will then be increasing competition for existing firms and reduce their profit that was made in the short run to the normal profit. So the profit for monopolistic in the long run is the normal profit, whereby total revenues are equal to the total cost, or average revenues are equal to the average cost. But how about oligopoly? Oligopolies enjoy economy profit or supernormal profit in the long run. Why? Remember, in the short run, they make a normal profit as they enter the market with their own selling prices without collusion. But as they get into the market, they are involved in collusive behavior, either implicitly or explicitly, where they charge excessively high prices that allow them to always maintain abnormal or supernormal profits in the long run. So oligopolies enjoy economic profit in the long run, while in the short run they've been enjoying the normal profit. Why do they make a normal profit? Because through collusion they exploit consumers and charge excessively high prices. So the oligopoly will make economic profit over the long run compared to the monopolistic competitor making a normal profit only in the long run because of high level of competition. Why will the above producer be reluctant to decrease his price from 40 Rand to 28 Rand? Show all calculations. Before we even calculate, you need to understand that under oligopoly, firms do not compete over the price because they avoid the price war. And also, should the firm try to lower its price from 40 Rand to 28 Rand, then what is going to happen? Other competitors will do the same, will copy the price and lower their prices, which will mean any profit that have been expected by this firm will be lost immediately due to the fact that market is too much interdependent. So total revenue for this firm will be reduced. That's why the firm will be reluctant to lower the price. It is because total revenues will be reduced from the higher number to the lower number. So it is reduced from how much? From 28,000 when the firm sell at 40 Rand to how much? To 22,400 when the firm is selling at 28 Rand. For that reason, the firm will always be reluctant to lower its prices due to the fact that total revenues will decrease. So it is important for you to show the calculation like TR equal to P times Q. You say 40 multiplied by our output in there. 40 multiplied by I'm checking 700, you get your 28,000, and then you say 28 multiplied by 800, you get your 22,400. Then how much is the revenue that was lost? You simply say 28,000 minus, but is it 22,400? Then you get the difference that was lost by the firm in terms of what we call of total revenue. So the firm will always be reluctant to lower the price under oligopoly or even increase the price above the collusive price because it will be losing its total revenues. Then we have monopoly here. Here we have total revenue maximization. If you can check the graph, this firm, remember along the demand curve, the firm under monopoly always increase or decrease the price to temper with the output. The firm was selling at P, and then the firm at P was producing at Q. Then the firm decided to lower the price from P to P1. Then what happened? The firm then did what? What the sales for the firm increased from Q to Q1. And then we are talking about total revenue maximization. Where do we actually maximize total revenue? Total revenue is maximized at this highest point here where TR is facing the apex. So it can no longer go up. It will then slope down if the firm continues to produce because it has already maximized its total revenue. So that simply means the firm maximizes its total revenues at P and Q. That's where the firm maximizes its total revenues. Then let's look at questions for this data response question. Mention the imperfect market structure illustrated above. It's a monopoly. Remember, monopoly refers to the market structure that exists where there is one seller and many buyers. Identify the total revenues maximization price. It's P. It's been indicated on the graph. Briefly describe the term marginal revenues. It refers to the revenues and after selling an extra additional unit. That's what we call the marginal revenue. And then we continue. How is the equilibrium position for the above firm in the short run and long run? So we are checking equilibrium in the short run. So in the short run, the monopolist firm mainly make economic profit where total revenues are more than total cost or average revenues are more than average cost. Also, in the long run, monopoly is believed to be making supernormal or economic profit, because remember, this firm is the only seller within the industry, is not faced by any competition. So for that reason, it is entitled to economic profit in both short run and long run. However, it can happen to make the economic loss or the normal profit. If ever average costs are more than average revenues, the monopoly will make economic loss. If average revenues are equal to average cost, the firm will make normal profit. So the equilibrium position for the above firm remains fixed in both short run and long run. It's simply the profit. So also equilibrium in there is not flexible. It remains constant along the graph, where MR equals to equal to MC. Because remember, the firm is a price setter, it is not the price taker. So there is no inflexibilities in there. And also the change in output move along the demand curve, not along the MR curve. Why does the average cost curve lie below average revenues curve under imperfect market? Basically monopoly or monopolistic or oligopoly. So imperfect market structures such as monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition has an influence or control. Marginal revenue lie below average revenues, and the marginal revenue cuts excess in the middle. Marginal revenues can be zero, while the firm is producing something can even be negative, but average revenues can never be zero if the firm is still producing at a certain output level. So they're not equal. MR lies below AR, because for any increase in price, it lowers total revenues. For any decrease in price can also lower total revenues, and that will be decreasing what you call the marginal revenues. So marginal revenues remain being lower than average revenues under imperfect markets or monopolies. Imperfect market structures have influence. I'm done with that. They increase the price to decrease the output and decrease the price to increase the output size, and that lowers the marginal revenues. Be able to answer such questions. And then we continue. Data response. This is the what we call we have monopolistic as well as here the artificial monopoly. So we have investment capital, we have branding as being used by what we call monopolistic competition, intellectual property or patents, and then regulations and licensing. So these are barriers to entry that can exist in the market. So this can be a part of monopolistic, and then the patents can create natural monopoly, artificial monopolies, and also it can also create some oligopolies. And then high capital requirement can also be a part of oligopolies. So in the above cartoon, identify the barrier to entry used by a monopolistic competitor to increase its sale or market share, its investment capital or branding. So they brand their product so that their product can appear different from those of the competitor. They must appear being totally different from those of the competitors. So the brand make it a point. Name the type of monopoly that is characterized by the use of patents. So with that one is a legal monopoly or artificial monopoly. Remember, artificial monopoly exists when barriers to entry are not economic in nature. Those barriers to entry are mainly created through legislation, like we talk about patents, exclusive rights, and then sole ownership of a particular natural resource. Those are the artificial barriers to entry that will create artificial monopolies. Oppositely, we have what we call natural monopolies, which are monopolies that exist when barriers to entry are economic in nature. In that case, we refer to the likes of economies of scale. When the firm is producing at the economies of scale in the market, it produces more goods at the lower cost per unit and sell them at the lower cost. So any willing competitor that is willing to enter the market will find it difficult to compete with this firm, because this firm is having the cost advantage. So for that reason, it becomes a barrier to entry. It blocks the entry of those businesses which creates what we call a natural monopoly. So they are blocked naturally, not legally, not by patents, not by exclusive rights, and not because those firms are given the right to own what we call a certain natural resource. Like DBS is the sole owner of what we call of diamond in South Africa. So that creates an artificial monopoly. Briefly describe the term economies of scale. Economies of scale occurs when output increases by more than the percentage increase in the inputs, when the cost per unit decreases when output expands. We call that one economies of scale. Remember, there's also what we call a diseconomies of scale, which exist when the firm produces more at the higher cost per unit and then will be selling at the higher cost. That creates a diseconomies of scale. How would barriers to entry influence profits in the market? we know that if ever the market is characterized by high barriers to entry, so those few businesses that are protected by barriers to entry will always be enjoying profit because they will be having more market share, they will be having more consumers, they will be making more sales because they are not faced by a high level of competition. You check if the firm is the monopoly, it is the only producer of a particular product. So for that reason, it is entitled to the economic profit, even though it can make economic loss. And then also, let's check. New businesses are restricted to enter the market, and existing businesses will enjoy economic profit in both short run and long run. It is because of no barriers to entry or less barriers to entry. But should there be no barriers to entry, there will be high level of competition. That will allow new firms to enter the market easily and compete, which will increase competition and reduce the profits enjoyed by firms in the short run to normal profit or even economic loss in the long run, because there are no barriers to entry. So the question is open here. How do barriers to entry influence profits in the market? Either there are more or less barriers to entry. Why is it a challenge for monopolies to charge excessive higher prices in the economy? Why they find it difficult to charge excessive high prices? We know that they are capable of charging the price above marginal cost because they know they are not faced by any competition and they are only suppliers of a unique product in the market that is not having any perfect substitutes. So monopoly is limited by the market demand, and consumers may stop buying if prices are too high. For instance, if ever the cost of electricity can increase aggressively in South Africa, we know it is already high, but if it can keep on increasing, people or consumers or households will opt for renewable energy by installing their own solar panels, so that they won't find themselves being entitled to buy electricity from Eskom. So consumers will always find an alternating product. Even if it's not available, they will find something that they can use in the space of the business that is too much expensive. Consumers have a limited budget, therefore monopolies cannot charge excessively high prices. As much as a business can be a natural monopoly where it does not have any competitor, but if ever it charges excessively high prices, consumers with limited budgets will opt for not buying that particular product because they don't afford. So there will always be alternatives that are available for them to satisfy their utility. And then a monopoly's product still has to compete for consumer favor with all other products in the economy. As much as electricity by Eskom, we say it does not have any perfect substitute, but there are indeed some substitutes that can be created in case we find ourselves without the choice of getting something different from what is supplied by Eskom. So there will always be something as an alternative. It might not be a perfect substitute, but will be indeed a substitute because it will be used in the place of electricity from Eskom. Price increases are sometimes regulated by the government to protect the consumer. So the state intervenes by regulating prices or imposing we call this administered prices, whereby the government will either impose the price floor or price ceiling, or minimum price or maximum prices. So if ever the state imposes prices below equilibrium, we call that one maximum price or the price ceiling, to ensure that consumers are able to afford that particular product that exists to improve market efficiency. There are different objectives under Commission Policy Act of South Africa. Then there are three bodies that were created by Commission Policy Act of South Africa, namely the Competition Commission, which does or conduct primary investigation if ever the firm is indeed guilty or not guilty of misconduct, and then will suggest the fine and transfer all findings to whom? To the Commission Tribunal. Commission Tribunal will receive those findings and review them to check if indeed they are correct or wrong. If ever the firm is indeed guilty, the fine will be imposed. The Commission Tribunal will impose the final fine to the firm that is found guilty of misconduct. Then in case the firm is not happy with the fine or penalty or the outcomes, they will go to the Commission Appeals Court. As they go there under Commission Appeals Court, they appeal the decision. As they appeal the decision, the Commission Appeals Court will receive the appeal and review decisions by the Competition Tribunal. Remember, the Commission Appeals Court function or act as the High Court of Competition in South Africa. Then let's look at these questions. Name the institution responsible for investigating unethical and competitive behavior. If we talk about unethical behavior in terms of commission, we mean restrictive practices or anti-competitive behavior that can talk to collusion or illegal measures or takeovers. It's a competition commission. And then which institution's role in the competition policy is similar to that of the High Court? That is Competition's Appeal Court, where it reviews decisions by what we call a Commission Tribunal. Briefly explain the term collusion, an arrangement between businesses with the aim of limiting competition between them by fixing prices or even production techniques. Remember, it can either be implicit or explicit. What do South African government want to achieve with competition policy? So these are the objectives of competition policy now. To promote efficiency in the economy, that's a primary aim, to promote market or economic efficiency, provide consumers with competitive prices and variety of choices. So it allows consumers to have variety of choices in the economy by ensuring that there are no barriers to end that are existing in the economy. Promoting employment as economic growth as well as economic development. So by allowing businesses to enter the market freely without barriers to enter, that can automatically create job opportunities. Encourage South Africa to participate in the world markets and accept foreign competition in South Africa. So promoting competitiveness of local industries abroad. And then it enables SMMEs, small, micro, and medium enterprise, to participate in the economy. Since there are no barriers to entry, SMMEs can easily enter the market and compete, which will even result to competitive prices in the economy. It allows the previous disadvantaged people to increase their ownership of businesses. So people that were previously marginalized can also be able to easily participate in the economy because barriers to entry or restrictions are not there. So there are some objectives that are not here. So it is important that you know objectives of Competition Policy Act of South Africa. Then, how does the price fixing disadvantage small and medium enterprises in fresh produces or fresh fruit businesses? So the price fixing, if ever businesses are involved in price fixing, then they charge excessively high prices. How does that affect smaller businesses? Price fixing will increase the cost of small and medium enterprises, resulting in high prices for consumers. High prices will then lead to the decline in customers or consumers, which will result in businesses making losses and eventually shutting down. Remember, these businesses are still very much small. They are already performing at the diseconomies of scale. So if ever then there is a price fixing, price will be excessively high, which can lead to them faced by an issue of decline in sales and consumers that can result in the decrease in their profits. Then there is a lot that can come. You can be given the graph under the monopoly where you answer questions. Let's say the graph is for economic profit under the monopoly. Then they will say maybe indicate the economic condition indicated, name or mention economic condition indicated above. If ever AC is above, AR is above AC, that's economic profit. Then they will ask you what is indicated by shaded area, that's economic profit. Then they say briefly describe the term natural monopoly. That's a monopoly that exists when barriers to entry are economic in nature. And then they will say maybe how to analyze the kind of the profit enjoyed by the business under the monopoly in the long run. Then you tell us that the business under the monopolist enjoy economic profit in the long run, whereby average revenues are more than average cost, or total revenues are more than total cost. Then they say use the above graph to calculate the profit enjoyed by the firm. Show all calculations. Remember, the calculation in there would be, there are two ways to calculate. There are three ways actually. So we say the profit or loss, normal profit, equals to AR minus AC times Q. And then we have the second one, profit equals to, if ever you are given TR and TC, or you are given AR and AC, you can use TR and TC. Profit equals to, we say TR minus TC. But in this case, we are given AR and AC. You open the bracket, AR times Q, close the bracket, minus, open the bracket, AC times Q. Then you can work it out and substitute. But if you are only given TR and TC, that's when now you will say profit equals to TR minus TC. So these are three ways that you can use to calculate your profit or loss within the economy or within the market structures. And then we have 8 marks questions now where you need to really discuss. You don't list. 2.4, one single question, middle order, e.g. explain, discuss, distinguish, or differentiate between draw correct label graph or draw a correct label graph and explain. Use the given graph and explain, 8 marks. So this is the content knowledge. It can be found in your book easily. 2.5 can also be 3.5 or 4.5. One single question, higher order, e.g. how, why, or evaluate. Higher order questions are grounded in the content. These types of questions test critical thinking, where candidates should be able to apply their knowledge through logical reasoning and also have an awareness of their current economic climate. So here you need to ensure that you answer in both ways. Basically, there must be minimum of 4 points in full sentences. Avoid listing. If you list in point 4, question can be 2.4, 3.4, 4.4. Be aware of the fact that you will be getting maximum of 4 marks even if you list 10 listing there. If they are correct, you can get 4 marks only if you are listing facts or examples. But in 2.5, if you are listing or 3.5 or 4.5, you will find yourself liable to only achieve about how many marks? You will only get so if ever they ask you the question that why the perfect market characterized by horizontal demand curve, I think doesn't work in there. You provide the fact that the demand curve is horizontal because the firm does not have control over the price. It's a price setter. So it's all about facts. The paper is simple, but you must know your facts so that you can always dominate the paper. There is also a critical thing that's also grounded on the content that has been taught to you in class. So 2.4, 3.4, 4.4, know your content because these questions are just content knowledge that can be found in your book. And then always in total cost. So you can see these are revenues being upward sloping straight from 0 going up, and then we have our total cost that is upward sloping but is not straight as compared to the total revenues. So at which point do we actually maximize the profit in this situation? The profit is maximized at the point where TC feathers away from TR. Which price is that? At 40 Rand and for output quantity 4, we maximize the profit as the business. So this is the point where the firm will be maximizing its profit. So you can be given the graph, then they give you questions. For instance, in this situation, let's create a question paper. Maybe they can say, mention the market structure or give the market structure indicated above. It is the perfect market. And then they will ask you what is indicated by what is it indicated by point A. You can see that at point A, TR equal to TC, that's a normal profit. And then briefly describe the term total revenue. It refers to the total income earned by the business after sales when prices match the fact that there will be high level of competition. And then they can also say, given the information above, maybe AC equals to maybe 10. AC is 40, AR is 10, and then the quantity output equals to 2. Calculate the profit and loss, show all calculations. Then you say AR minus AC times Q. Then let's go. AR equals to 10 minus, what is the value of AC? This is AC equals to 40 times Q. Then we go for the 10 minus 40 is negative 30 times 2, which is the quantity, and then 30 times 2 equals to negative 30 times 2 equals to negative 60. That is your economic loss. So it can come as a data response. It can also come also they can say draw the graph, or they can give you the graph and say analyze something in there. Then you use the graph. Okay, then that's explanation. So all points where total revenue is above total cost, the firm is making economic profit. All points where total cost is above total revenue, the firm is making economic loss. The gap between TR and TC represent profit. Profit is maximized where the gap between TR and TC is the greatest. This occurs at quantity 4. I mean at it's quantity 4. Let me check the graph at the back there if it's quantity 4 indeed. So I'm looking at the graph. Okay, check. Okay, the quantity, yes, it's indeed correct. The quantity is 4 while the price is 40. That's when we are maximizing our total revenues. And then let's continue to the next question. Why are equilibrium position for the perfect commodity not sustainable in the long run? Remember, under perfect market, equilibrium position is not sustainable. It is flexible. It changes from lower to higher or from higher to order depending on how the market is functioning. If ever there's an entry of new businesses in the market, what happens? The competition will be increasing the total output produced and the supply. That will drop down the price, and the what we call the equilibrium position for the firm will be changing from E to E1. So it is important for you to know that equilibrium position under perfect market is not flexible. It always changes in the long run because the firm is not the price setter, is the price taker. Whenever the market determines the new price, there will be new equilibrium position that will appear within that particular market. Profits are signals for entry of new businesses and extension of current businesses. So so what happens here, as much as existing firms are making the profit, they attract new firms to enter the market, and then new technology developed daily, leading to increase in supply in the market. The quantity offered by businesses in the market increase, indicating mass production. The increase in the supply lead to the decrease in price due to the lower cost per unit, and that will also be resulting to the firm taking the lower price. That will be shifting the what we call equilibrium position for the firm. All businesses in the industry will be making normal profit and produce at the minimum of the long-term average cost. And then as economic loss will lead to some business leaving the market, and the supply will then decrease. The decrease in the supply will lead to increase in price until it is at the same level as the long-run average cost. If businesses are able to turn their losses to profits, they will make normal profits over the long run. Any other answer that is relevant and correct is accepted. Draw a well-labeled graph to illustrate the long-run equilibrium for the firm under the monopoly. Remember, in the long run, the firm will always will enjoy economic profit. So this is the graph. You simply draw the graph that is indicating economic profit. One thing you must know, even if you are given the graph, this line that is drawn here, it is touching your average revenues, meaning that is your revenue as a business. So if you have to calculate the profit, always ensure that the line that is touching AR, you know that those are your revenues, and the line where AC is turning, be aware that that is your average cost. Then you can be able to calculate the profit or a loss. So it is important that you are able to identify if the firm is making a profit or a loss. Also identify the revenues and the cost, because there can be even another value here, maybe of 150. Then you might be confused. Another one here, maybe of 200. So you have to, you have to indicate the profit maximization price. You don't know because you are confused by all of these prices. The main price that is necessary for you is the one where this line is touching AR and also where AC is turning. So it's a long run, so that's why we are putting LAC. It can also be LMC, meaning long run marginal cost and long run average cost. Briefly discuss overt collusion and tacit collusion. So we are giving the difference basically, or we are just discussing them both, implicit and explicit. Overt collusion as what we call, it's when oligopolies collude openly. So we call this one explicit collusion. They collude openly or formally through cartels. And then cartels is an association of oligopolies businesses that comes into existence in an industry with the specific aim of forming collective monopoly. So cartels control production of goods, and this influences the prices because they become a monopoly indirectly while they are competitors. And then overt or explicit collusion pertains a formal agreement between businesses within the pure oligopoly to influence the price or production techniques to keep their high profits, even in the long run. And then we continue with the same question. Tacit or implicit collusion. The behavior by firms is motivated by arrangement that is not formal or unspoken actions between oligopolies firms that are likely to minimize the competitive response. And then tacit or implicit collusion occurs through the price leadership process. Then remember, price leader was defined. We continue. It does not include a formal agreement between competitors. The market interdependence creates mutuality where competitors copy each other's profitable decisions without any formal agreement. Price leaders are usually the strongest and the most dominant businesses whose production cost is at the lowest, but can also be firms that understand market signals very well without sales dominance. This was explained even before. So with the aid of graph, we have to draw here the PPC. Explain how productive and allocative inefficiencies can be achieved in the market. So here we have our PPC being illustrated. We have the point inside the PPC. Remember, PPC we say is concave. The structure of PPC is concave, but the structure of indifferent curve is convex. Be aware of that. And then PPC, the point inside the PPC, the points along the PPC, and the points outside the PPC. So we say points inside the PPC are allocative inefficient and productive inefficient. Why? Because in this situation, the firm has enough resources to produce, but decide to use less resources. But the points along the PPC can be point C, point A, point B. These points are productive efficient. And then allocative efficiency is achieved only in point B, where PPC is intangent to indifferent curve. So we say we have allocative efficiency here. And then the point outside the PPC is unattainable. We cannot afford to produce at point outside there, because at that point we have less resources to produce in there. Productive efficiency can be achieved when the firm produces at any point along the PPC. That is at point A to D. Allocative efficiency can be achieved when indifferent curve IC is tangent to the PPC. This occurs at point B on the graph. You can see this is the point where we have allocative efficiency. Evaluate the success of Competition Policy Act of South Africa on achieving its objectives. Then let's check. Successful. So here I will give you key points as a summary. Provides consumer with competitive prices and variety of products, e.g. MTN and Vodacom. DSTV has been found to have been investigated with positive outcome. Currently, a number of big insurance companies in South Africa are under investigation over alleged fixing of insurance premiums. And then we continue. The failure. Fines imposed on firms that have been found guilty have been too lenient, which allows them to continue. It has failed to protect consumers over aggressive prices. Prices have been detrimental to economic growth and development over the past 2 years. State-owned monopolies remain as main suppliers of some products, such as electricity, which has contributed to high level of productive and allocative inefficiency in the economy. As we go to section C, note the following. If we evaluate the success and the failure of Competition Policy Act, we can even add that it's been successful because it managed to establish 3 commission bodies, namely Competition Commission, Commission Tribunal, as well as the Competition Appeals Court. It's been successful because a number of firms have been investigated in South Africa. Like, if I can count, we talk about Walmart and Massmart were investigated and were found guilty of illegal merge or takeover. And then number 2, we can talk about SAA. SAA was once sold to the private sector. 51% shares were sold some years ago, but that was cancelled for some reason. So it was investigated by the Commission, and it could not succeed. That sale could not succeed because of that investigation. And then also we talk about commercial banks. About 4 large commercial banks in South Africa were investigated and found guilty of fixing the exchange rate. That happened early in 2000, and then also it happened last year. They were found guilty of fixing what we call the exchange rate. And then Tiger Brand was also found guilty. So you need to know the realm of firms that have been investigated and found guilty of misconduct, so that you can simply answer the question. A lot can be asked from you. You can be asked even to draw the demand curve for oligopolies. Then also you can be asked. You can be given oligopolies demand curve with numbers to evaluate why the firm can be reluctant to either increase the price or decrease the price, showing all calculations. You can be required to illustrate the graph indicating the shutdown point for the business. So there's a lot of information that is missing here, but you need to know it and remind yourself. Externalities are also a part of it. You can be required to draw the graph for externalities, or you can be given the graph under externalities where you have to answer the question. Section C, we are dealing with essays now. So what's happening here? Introduction, as you know, it was discussed as 2 marks, and you must define the concept. And then we go further to the body or main part. Here we have to discuss is the content knowledge that you have to provide here. Ensure that you arrange your essay in point form, not paragraph forms. List your subheadings to score those marks for lower order. It can be the maximum of 8 marks you can get, including examples, but 18 marks in there out of this 26 is for the content delivery. And then additional part, that's a separate question that is from the same context or same content, where you will be critically answering a particular question in terms of evaluation. That's a higher order question. Ensure that you answer in full sentences, and then you provide the minimum of 5 points of facts. Do not list, because listing can provide you an opportunity to get only 2 points if that listing is correct. And then conclusion should be the higher order response, where you synthesize or evaluate what we have been discussing, but do not repeat anything that has been mentioned in the introduction, body, or additional part in the conclusion, but it should be the higher order response. And then these are the essays that you might be required to discuss. Discuss in detail various equilibrium position with the aid of graphs under perfect market. So in this situation, we are talking about economic profit, normal profit, and economic loss. How to answer the question? You will start by defining perfect market if ever the question comes in. Perfect market refer to the market structure that exists where there are many buyers and sellers with none of them having influence over the price. You get your 2 marks. You continue. Main part or body main part. Then you indicate economic profit or supernormal profit. You explain the condition for the profit. It's economic condition that occurs when the firm total revenues exceed or are more than or are greater than total cost, or it occurs when average revenues are more than average cost, or when average revenues are above average cost. So that simply means revenues earned by the business exceed the cost incurred in the business after sales. And then you draw the graph. Then after drawing the graph, you interpret your graph. And then we go to economic loss. You explain economic loss. Economic loss is the economic condition that occurs when the average cost exceed average revenues, or total cost exceed total revenues. In that situation, average cost curve turns above average revenues. So that simply means income earned by the business after sales is lower than expenses that incurred in the business. You draw the graph, you interpret the graph, you go to the normal profit. That is the economic condition that prevails when total revenues are equal to total cost, or average revenues are equal to the average cost. And then these are the minimum earnings that prevent the firm from leaving the market. It is also regarded as the break-even point. In this condition, the firm is not making a profit, neither a loss. And then you draw your graph, interpret, then go to the additional part. Discuss the monopoly in detail with or without graphs. So in this situation, you can be required to discuss characteristics of monopoly or the market structure of the monopoly, or discussing two equilibrium positions for the firm under monopoly. If ever they say with the graph where you discuss equilibrium positions, it is important for you to be sure that you draw two graphs. Those graphs can be, they normally give you the headings. It can be economic profit or supernormal profit graph, and also the economic loss. They can also give you normal profit to be drawn. So be able to draw these graphs in there even for the monopoly. Remember, as for characteristics, you know them. You know the list, be able to list, and then be able to explain that characteristic. Examine the oligopoly in detail with regard to its behavior and the Kinked demand curve. In this situation, you discuss oligopoly as a market structure or as characteristics in detail. Where you list characteristics of oligopoly, then you discuss them in detail. And then compare and contrast any two types of market structures, maybe perfect to imperfect market, or normally we don't say this here, we can say maybe monopoly to monopolistic competition, or perfect market to maybe to the monopoly, or monopolistic to what we call to the oligopoly. For instance, if ever they say compare and contrast the market structure for the monopolistic maybe and oligopoly, it is important that you know how to answer the question. I will simply show you. Then we go further, discuss in detail how the following factors lead to the misallocation of resources. Remember, these are the reasons for the market failure. So they normally look at your exam guideline. They don't say discuss in detail reasons for the market failure. They call them factors that may lead to the misallocation of resources. So ensure that you understand this as you answer the question. In this situation, we talk about these 6 reasons, like missing markets, immobility of factors of production, lack of information, imperfect market structure, unfair income distribution, and externalities. Let me brief you. We define the market failure here to say market failure occurs when the market undersupply or oversupply goods and services. Market failure occurs when the market misallocate resources in a way that desired quantities are not produced. Then you go to your body, and then main part, you talk about missing markets. We know that the market is totally incomplete without the provision of public goods and services. So if we talk of public goods, we refer to community goods, which are goods that are provided by the government free of charge to everyone in the society. So it's not mainly for the profit to maintain that kind of the infrastructure. For instance, if we talk about collective goods, we can talk about toll roads. So in there, the government intervened by imposing user charges or levies to those people that are willing to use that road infrastructure, so that the road can be maintained even for the long term. So remember, collective goods are not free riders because some user charges are imposed to prevent them from being free riders. And then we continue with the merit goods. Merit goods are goods that are provided by the government to the entire society, and they are beneficial because they contain only positive externality. They include education, healthcare, and the defense force. These goods are underrated in the market, but they are highly desired for the welfare of the nation. Why are these goods undersupplied in the market? They are mainly undersupplied because people are not willing to pay for these goods and services. And then we go to demerit goods. Remember, these are the goods that are harmful into the society. They contain negative externalities. E.g., we refer to what we call the cigarette, then alcohol, firearms, as well as the drugs. So these goods are highly rated by the market. They are overrated, but they are undersupplied because of the government regulation. The government intervened to regulate the sale of these goods and services to prevent their overconsumption because they are harmful. So these goods then create the black market, because if the government put more regulations on their sales, that will mean then the people will be selling them underground, under the black market. And then we go further. The second one can be maybe lack of information. Remember, market information is very much important for all economic stakeholders to make informed decisions. Like, workers need to have a complete information about the nature of job before they commit themselves, so that they will be able to understand the income they will be earning, number of days that are worked, hours that are worked in that particular workplace. So it is important for them to be fully informed about even the risk of the job, because if they are not informed, they find themselves suffering while they were not aware of the risk. And then consumers must be fully informed about information of the market, so that they won't be exposed to the price discrimination. They won't be exploited by producers to high prices. They need to know where to find the product, and then how much is the product, what is the quality. So they have to know that kind of the info, so that they cannot be inefficient as they make decisions. Producers need to know enough information about what happens in the market. They need to know the market where they can be able to find affordable factors of production, so that they avoid producing at these economies of scale. So that they can be able to lower the cost of production while increasing the output size. That's information. And then we talk about imperfect market structure. Remember, that referred to the market structure that does not comply with the regulations of the perfect market. So under imperfect market, we know that monopolies are protected by barriers to entry. So they become the only producers of a unique product, which allows them to exploit consumers to high prices as they charge prices above the marginal cost. What happened to the oligopolies? Oligopolies are involved in price fixing. So those businesses are involved in collusion, which limits competition and exploit consumers to high prices. While monopolistic competitors are involved in product differentiation, which reduces the quantity of goods and services in the market, because these goods become limited and they become unique because of the product differentiation. Oligopoly is also involved in aggressive advertising, which is bad because it makes other goods appear, it makes their goods appear to be more, so it is uneasy for the labor to be flexible. And then we talk about capital. Capital is only single purpose produced. It is not the multi-use. If ever you have a certain machine to produce a particular product with the surplus, then you lack something else. You cannot convert the machine to produce something else that is not created for. So you can have more machine to make copies, but if you don't have other machine, like maybe to do something else within that particular industry, you cannot convert, because machines are not multi-purpose created. And then also, capital cannot easily be moved from one place to another. We talk about maybe infrastructure. If we install railway in Gauteng, we cannot move that railway into Mpumalanga if it's deemed to be unnecessary in Gauteng, because it takes time to be installed but cannot be removed, because it is installed on land. So in that case, we say even land is not easily flexible. Entrepreneurs cannot move from one expertise to another because of the training that they have acquired. So then we're talking about immobility of factors of production. Then unfair income distribution. We know that whenever initial income distribution is unfair, the final will also be unfair. What is causing that? That is caused by maybe some facts like disabilities, apartheid laws, and then also lack of education, and as well as unemployment. They have contributed to income and economic inequalities in South Africa. And then we go further, maybe we check externalities. Remember, we talk about charges of benefit that spill over to the third party. And then in that situation, we have positive, which are the benefits that are borne to the third party. Then we have negative, that are charges that spill over to the third party. So you need to understand costs and benefits that are associated to what you call externalities. So in that situation, you need to check private costs or internal costs as well as external costs. Put them together, you get social costs. Private benefit or internal benefit as well as external benefit, put them together, we get what we call social benefit. I'm just reminded now that you must not forget CPA. So as I'm talking about the cost and benefits, remember the cost benefit analysis, which is the comparison of costs and benefits within public sector infrastructure development. Larger project by the government require CPA. I'm going back to the section B. I'm sorry about that. And then also remember, we have something that we call a CPR, cost benefit ratio, where we have to calculate the CPR to see if the project is economically worthwhile or not. How do we see that? If ever CPR equals to 1, that means social costs are equal to social benefit. The project is not economically worthwhile. It cannot be undertaken because the benefits are equal to the cost. And then if ever CPR is more than 1, that simply means the project is economically worthwhile. Why? Because social benefits are more than social cost. So the project can be undertaken by the government and continue. And then if ever CPR is less than 1, that project is not economically worthwhile. What's happening there? It is because social costs are more than social benefits. Then that project cannot be undertaken because it contains more negative externalities. Why does the government implement CPR or CPA? To ensure proper decision making, to compare cost and benefit for the project before it's undertaken. All right, let's continue with essays. We go to discussing detailed state intervention as a consequence of market failure with or without graphs. So these are the essays that you can expect in your examination. Remember, 2 of them will appear and ensure that you become clinical. These are the market structures. If ever they ask you a question in the exam to compare and contrast market structure, it is important for you to know the following. Let's say we talk about monopolistic and oligopoly. I'm making an example. You don't say there are many sellers. You say number of sellers, like this is structure. You underline this, we give you a mark. You tell us that under monopolistic, there are many buyers and sellers. This is caused by the fact that there is a free market entry. Under oligopoly, there are few large firms that exist in the market and many buyers. What is causing that? Some barriers to entry exist to block the entry of new businesses. Nature of products. Under monopolistic, products are differentiated. Differentiated products are products that satisfy the same utility. They are also perfect subject for one another, but they differ in branding. However, under oligopoly, product can also be differentiated or homogeneous. Differentiated products are produced by differentiated oligopoly, while homogeneous are produced by the pure oligopolies. You go to the price determination. You tell us that under monopolistic competition, firms are having the control over the price. They can influence their own prices, while under oligopoly, firms are also price setters, even though that the price is determined through what we call collusion or through price leadership or in cartels. So it is important that you know this is what we call your structure. Maybe we talk about demand curve. The demand curve for the monopolistic competition is downward sloping but relatively elastic. What is causing that? It is caused by the fact that under monopolistic there's high level of competition, which can result to the demand curve becoming more elastic because consumers are very sensitive to the price change in there due to the fact that they have different alternating products available for them to choose from. While in the oligopoly, the demand curve is kinked, characterized by 2 segments, namely top segment and the bottom segment. Why that is the case? Because of the market interdependence. So you can continue, but it is important that you know how to structure if we discuss the market structure between all of these what we call structures here. This is the example of an essay that we are dealing with today. Discussing detailed state intervention as a consequence of market failure, can be with or without graphs. So here I mix everything including graphs so that you will be fully informed if ever the essay happens to come in. Remember, I've discussed all other essays before that are expected of you. So I only provide one example for you today here. Examine the impact of income inequality in the economy. So then introduction, obviously we define the market failure. Market failure occurs when the market is unable to achieve the efficient allocation of resources and is therefore not able to achieve the best available outcome. Market failure occurs when the market misallocates resources, resulting to undersupply or oversupply of goods and services. Then we have a direct control. That's a state intervention. So the government uses legislation, laws, and regulations as well as bylaws as an intervention to restrict production of goods and services that have negative externality. And then we continue to restrict overconsumption. The state legislate laws that directly limit business from making provision of those goods and services. Then in South Africa, tobacco tobacco advertising is prohibited, is not allowed. Tobacco producers are forced to make the provision of negative effects on the packaging of the product. And then regulations for advertising exist to prevent false claims and deceptive advertising. Then we continue. Selling unprescribed and illegal drugs is also prohibited. There must be prescription. With regards to imperfect information, government requires business to disclose their information on the packaging or the web page of the product. Information should be made available on the packaging of the product or on the web page. And then this information should be based on the product dosage, ingredients, and allergy, etc. Public awareness is made on alcohol as it is being restricted for being sold to the children under the age of 18. Then motorists are not allowed to have a certain percentage of alcohol within their bodies while they are driving. So these are some regulations that prevent the overconsumption of some goods and services that are regarded to be harmful. According to South African law, drinking and driving is prohibited. So those are some regulations. And then in other instances, government require firms products to meet certain standards, e.g. cars must satisfy certain safety standards set by the government. And then also the SAPS, South African Bureau of Standards, regulates standards in South Africa. All firms must produce goods that meet with certain health, safety, and quality standards by SAPS. In the product, if the product does not meet SAPS prescribed standards, it cannot be allowed in the market. So those are some regulations. Imperfect markets. Producers are motivated to maximize profit, which occurs at the expense of the consumer. Firms restrict output to increase their prices, use licensing and patents to restrict the entry of other businesses and competition. Other firms withhold information to maintain market dominance, while others use aggressive advertising to drive other competitors out of the market. And then we continue. Collusion by oligopoly reduce competition and keep prices high as competitors engage in price fixing through cartels or price leadership. Monopolies use their dominant position and market power to solely control the supply of unique products, which can lead to even inefficiencies. To prevent the above practices, the government introduced the Commission Policy Act in 1998 to promote healthy competition between businesses and promote market efficiency. We continue. And then the Commission Policy Act aims to prohibiting anti-competitive behavior between competitors, firms and their consumers or suppliers. Then the three commission bodies were formed, which include Commission Tribunal, as well as Commission Appeals Court, to ensure that healthy and fair competition exists in South Africa. Commission bodies are used to evaluate measures and investigate any alleged restrictive practice or illegal takeovers in the economy. They impose fines on competitors if found guilty of misconduct. Then we continue with the minimum wage. So here, minimum wage refers to the least wage amount of money that can be paid to employees, meaning the lowest wage that no worker should be paid below in the particular industry. When the minimum wage has been legislated, no worker should be paid below that prescribed wage level. So the minimum wage is established by the government to prevent workers from being exploited by employers because they happen to do so. And then we continue with the minimum wage. It is a mechanism used to reduce economic inequalities that exist between economic participants. And then also the establishment of minimum wage result to poverty relief and living by people. It improves economic participation of marginalized people and increased demand for goods and services. The state tax revenues is also affected positively by minimum wage because direct spending by consumers on goods and services is also taxable, which can increase the government the state revenues. Then we continue. Domestic workers, farm workers, EPWP, as well as internship programs are protected by these laws, which include minimum wage. Minimum wage have some negative effects, which include retrenchment and unemployment due to high labor costs and excess supply of workforce. We know that if ever minimum wage has been implemented, there will be retrenchment because labor costs tend to increase and firms find it expensive to employ workers. How does the government prevent that unemployment from happening or retrenchment? It provides employment subsidies. To keep minimum wage law functional, the state intervened with employment subsidies to support employers that have less revenues to keep their employees on the minimum wage. This is the graph for the minimum wage. And then that's our supply, that's our demand. And then that's our equilibrium, which is the market wage is 2,000 rand. And then the quantity demanded of labor is 30. Then we have the point in there that indicates minimum wage is 3,500. What is going to happen when you implement minimum wage? And then let's check here. If minimum wage has been implemented, what is going to happen? Workers will be retrenched from 30 to 20 for that reason. Or how much is the quantity supplied now? The quantity supplied is 60, but quantity demanded of labor is only 20. So in this situation, there will be retrenchment and high level of unemployment because firms find it expensive to employ workers in this situation. That's our supply. And then that's point C. And that's point D. So the gap between point C and D indicates the market surplus oversupply of labor in there. That's our demand. And then there it is being explained as original supply curve with the demand being original demand curve. And then the market wage is 2,000, which is determined at point E, which is equilibrium. And then also that is the number of workers employed at the market price. and then 3,500 is our minimum wage. There it is. And then what happens if ever minimum wage is in place? It results to the decline in quantity of labor that has been demanded. You can see it's declined from 30 to 20. And then the quantity of labor supplied increased to 60 because people are motivated to work due to the fact that they will be earning reasonable salaries. And then the distance between C and B indicates the surplus of labor. Minimum prices refer to prices that are administered by the government to be above the equilibrium. We call the minimum price or price floors. And then we continue. They are the administered prices set by the government to accommodate industries to produce critical goods for social welfare. So this one is created to ensure that there is enough food that's available in South Africa. It's there to safeguard food security for the nation. That's why they are motivated to produce. They are motivated to charge at the higher cost so that they will be able to produce more. Then farmers are mostly encouraged to keep their production at the high through minimum prices. Government intervene to ensure there is high enough qualities of basic foodstuffs such as maize. Then minimum prices artificially increase the price of certain goods to keep suppliers within the market. There is the graph. So we know that if ever the state intervened by what we call a minimum price or price floor, that will make goods to appear more expensive to consumers, but firms will be motivated to produce relatively more of those goods and services, which will be creating the market surplus. Remember, market surplus can lead to dumping. And then there is the minimum price being indicated. The price was 100 market, according to the market. Now it's 150. And then the quantity demanded is 120 on the market, but then the quantity supplied is now 200. Let's check. There are points there, point A and point B, that are indicated. So 70 is the quantity demanded. So it will decrease the quantity demanded along the demand curve, but quantity supplied will be increasing. So let's check that supply curve. Then point A and point B, they're indicating the market surplus because consumers are demanding along this point, and then firms are supplying from point A to point B. So it goes further, the supply in the meaning there can be oversupply of the product, and then the product become relatively expensive. Then let's check why does the government, how does the government then overturn this thing of expensive product? It intervened by what we call subsidies on product to make these goods appear more affordable to consumers. Then you find that the product remain 100 rand to the consumer, and then the product is mainly 150, but the consumer will pay 100 rand because of the subsidy given per unit. So D is represent the demand curve for maize, and then point E is the original equilibrium where there's intersection of SS and DD. The equilibrium price is 100, you can see, and then quantity is 120. Then we continue with the explanation. 150 is the minimum price, while 70 units will be demanded in there. And then the new quantity demanded the new quantity demanded or the quantity supplied will be increasing to 200. There it is, but quantity demanded will go down to 70 rand. So the gap between A and B indicate the market surplus, which can lead to dumping. Maximum price or price ceilings. Maximum prices are prices that are set below, so they are set by the government to be below equilibrium. That is done by the government to accommodate people that are marginalized or unemployed to afford those goods and services. People with less disposable income face challenges because most goods and services are out of their financial reach due to limited spending capacity. The state therefore intervened by artificially decreasing prices of certain goods and services to make them more affordable to consumers. And then basic goods such as electricity, water supply, housing, and paraffin are sold below the market price. This is done to make them accessible and affordable to consumers because they are necessary for the welfare. Maximum prices increase the demand for those goods and services that are affected. However, it decreases the supply because firms find them not profitable enough, then they supply less. This reduces poverty and economic inequalities. Maximum prices increase ability of marginalized people to participate in the economy, and then also maximum prices discourage suppliers from making provisions of these goods because they are no longer profitable. The supply of the product tend to be lower than the demand for this particular product or a service, which create the market shortage. This leads to shortages of goods and services in the market. For that reason, the state intervened by converting those goods to public goods and services, supplying the portion that is not supplied by the private sector. That's why we have some public goods. Then we have the graph again indicating our price ceiling or maximum prices. They are below equilibrium. So there we go. We have our equilibrium in there. Then we indicate our price ceiling or maximum prices. So which one is our price ceiling. Our price ceiling or maximum price is 50. The market price was 100, but now because of state intervention, it dropped down to 50, meaning people have to afford. What are businesses doing? Businesses are finding it too much unnecessary to supply this particular product, so they produce only 100 units, but consumers demand 200. So what happens within the gap here? This gap indicates the market shortage between the gap between A and B. So let's see that gap. It's there indicated. The gap between A and B indicates the market shortage. Then the government will intervene by supplying these goods as public goods, and the whole of the space will then be supplied by the government. And then we continue with the explanation. And then obvious that one, and then 100 is the market price with the quantity being 150. Point E is the equilibrium point where SS meets DD, and then state intervention through maximum prices decrease the decrease the price of education from 100 to 50. And then what has happened in the quantity of education supplied by the market decreased from 100 to decreased to 100, which was from 200. And then excess demand prevailed, and the distance between A and B indicate the market shortage or the undersupply. Therefore, these goods will then be supplied by the government. Levying taxes. Indirect taxes are levied on goods and services that have negative externalities to recover the external cost and also reduce the consumption. The government discourages the consumption of certain goods by increasing taxes on them to restrict their supply. These goods compromise the social welfare, hence state intervention is required. Affected goods include cigarette, alcohol, and sugar beverages. And then we continue with the graph then of taxes. Remember, if ever tax is imposed, the cost of production will increase and will be high. Then the price will also be high. Then consumers, firms will produce less while consumers are demanding more. Then there we go. We have our demand curve, and then the connecting our points in the equilibrium where they meet. There is a new supply curve. Then backward shift of the supply curve because of the increase in the price and the cost of production for the firm. And then there you go, we have a new equilibrium. That's Q1 now, the quantity new equilibrium, which is E1. So what happens here, if ever the state imposes taxes, what is going to happen? Our firms will then find it expensive to produce this particular product. Then they will then supply less of this particular product while consumers are demanding relatively more. That can result to the price increasing. Then it will discourage people from demanding this product because it is now expensive. And then let's check the explanation. Obviously, D, D, and SS are original. Then we have equilibrium there where they meet. And then Q is equilibrium quantity with P being equilibrium price. And then we continue with the shift. The increase in tax on the production cost and the increase in tax on the production cost and result to the decrease in supply of the product. The supply curve shift from right to the left, from S to S1, S1. The equilibrium point is created where S1 meets DD. Q1 is the new equilibrium quantity, while P1 is the new price, equilibrium price. This decreases the consumption of affected goods and services because they become more expensive. Subsidies refer to the financial aid given to producers to reduce cost of production and increase the production of certain goods. Then subsidies can be direct or indirect. Then direct subsidies refer to cash or grant given by the government. And then indirect subsidies include tax rebates or exemption, government surety, and other benefits that can result to business producing more at the lower cost. The introduction of subsidy results in the increase in output produced, hence the supply of goods will also be increasing. Subsidies can be used for variety of purposes, including production, income, employment, and export. Production subsidies lower the cost of production and increase the production level. And then they benefit consumers because increased supply lowers the selling price, resulting to them affording more of that particular product. There is our graph for the subsidy. Then supply and demand, they're coming. And then the equilibrium being created there where they meet originally. That's P, and then we are connecting the new point in there. There is the new demand, the new supply curve being given because of the subsidy, because subsidy has an effect of increasing the supply of goods and services, lowering the price. You can see the price has been already lowered. Then the quantity supplied will also be increasing from Q to Q1. You can see it's increasing from Q to Q1 because of the subsidy. This allows consumers to afford more of this particular product while firms are producing at the lower cost. Original points are neglected right now, and then wherever there's S1, we have a new equilibrium, and then we have P1 as well as Q1. And then we continue with income redistribution. The income redistribution, remember, unfair income distribution was indicated before. Income redistribution methods are necessary for the economy to reduce economic inequalities. So in this situation, the state have intervened. The gap between middle class and working class resulted in government intervening or intervention to redistribute income and wealth even fairly, so that even marginalized people can afford their basic needs. And then South African government has introduced many redistribution measures, such as mechanism to combat poverty and redress of economic imbalances of the past. So we talk about progressive tax system. The state intervened by using progressive tax system, whereby high income earners are taxed more than low income earners, and that money benefit the underprivileged or the poor in the economy. So taxation is the main source of revenue for the government that is used for the income distribution. Tax revenues are used by the state extensive expenditure, which is documented on the national budget. The state expenditure includes social transfer, social services, and infrastructure development. The state also creates sustainable job opportunities for the unemployed through EPWP. Redress methods. Redress measures have been continuously implemented by the government as a part of economic transformation. It is done to ensure economically excluded people are able to participate in the economy. The introduction of broad-based black economic empowerment, which is triple BE, has improved procurement for former marginalized people. So there's a high level of ownership by black people in South Africa now. Employment Equity Act was legislated to promote affirmative action, and now we know that we have amended Employment Equity Act, which allows black people to really get the privilege in the workplace in case there's a high position that has been advertised. So as long as they are skilled enough and educated for the job, they are given a priority to get that job, even though the decision or that policy has been challenged by some political parties, but it has been made official by the government. Government involvement in production. Governments are involved in producing goods and services themselves, where we government approach to incomplete market is to intervene and supply desired public goods and services. They raise taxes and provide these goods themselves. And then income taxes, indirect taxes, and wealth taxes are used to pay for those goods and services. Community goods are provided free of charge, such as police services, defense force. We talk about also traffic lights and street lights. And then we continue. Macroeconomic stability. If markets are free and objectives of growth are free and objective growth with employment, price stability, exchange rate stability, etc., are not achieved, that is known as economic instability. Then there must be state intervention. The intervention focuses on either demand side or supply side policies. That's your paradigm. And then demand side policies. The Keynesians believe that government has an important stabilization effect in the economy. There must be intervention by using what we call fiscal policy and monetary policy to stabilize the economy. The most important of these policies include fiscal and monetary policy. Supply side, some objectives are not reached because of the market rigidities. Then the supply side focus on the capability of the economy, on policies that attempt to expand the stock of production factors and infrastructure, and to improve flexibility of factors of production in the market. Then we have our additional part. A high level of economic inequality means a high level of poverty. And then also poverty is associated with the increased crime and poor public health, which places burden on the economy. And then in the face of increasing food prices and lower income support for pro-growth government policies decline. We continue. Wealthy citizens maintain disproportionate political power compared to poor citizens, which encourages the development of inefficient tax structures skewed in favor of the wealthy. We continue with additional part. Unequal income distribution increases political instability, which threatens property rights, increases the risk of state-rejected contracts, and discourages capital accumulation. And then the widening of rich-poor gap tends to increase the state of rent-seeking and predatory market behavior that hinder economic growth. Continue. The growth is suppressed in the economically unequal society by decreasing availability of investments for human capital. Then maximum can be 10 marks. Any other correct answer was accepted here. Then we go to the conclusion. Remember, should be high order response without any repetition. Market inefficiencies can result in government intervening to produce goods and services that are undersupplied in the market, as they are deemed to be important for social welfare. Any other correct conclusion in the higher order level can be accepted. Then I, Mr. Mhlongo, thank you and wish you all the best for tomorrow. Remember, this thing continues. After this session of exam, we continue with our next content, whereby we prepare for the preparatory examination. Remember, it is important that you understand your prelim timetable together with the final exam timetable as economic learner, because if you are doing economics,